good.
It's called to order the Sparks City Council meeting of, what's the name, 5/29/2018 with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini,
Here.
Council Members Abbott.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Bybee. Here. Dier.
Here.
City Attorney Adams.
Here.
City Manager Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay, we do not have a pastor to do the invocation today, so Mr. Dare, would you please oblige us and do that, please? Please stand for the invocation, please. And I apologize, I won't be standing.
Lord, we come to you and we do thank you for Memorial Day and all that it means. Thank you for this last weekend. We do pray for those Gold Star families that this last weekend meant something very near and dear to their heart as the sacrifices they looked at with their own families. Lord, we do thank you for the military around this world, and we pray, God, that you guide our country. Continue to make this a great country, a great city. Help us to make wise decisions even here today and as we talk about things happening right here in our own city of Sparks. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Christopher, that was very nice. Sam, could I impose on you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Normally you'll just start it and then we'll follow right in for you. Is that okay with you? Yes. All right, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go to public comment, Christopher, could you please introduce your guest today, please?
Yes, we have a junior councilman here today. This is my nephew. His name is Samuel Weber. Brewer. I said Weber. My sister's going to come after me now. Brewer. And he's here today visiting. He's going to be joining me and kind of taking part in all this. Maybe he's a future president. We don't know. So just letting him see how it all works.
Thanks, Christopher, and welcome, Sam. Anything
Welcome,
you would
Sam.
like to say?
You sound just like your uncle.
Yeah.
Hello.
More eloquent.
You can say hello.
I already did. Hello.
There you go.
That'll work. Okay, let's go to public comment. If you want to speak under public comment, please fill out one of these cards. We'll get you up to speak for 3 minutes. First, we have Kirk Reinschmidt. Welcome, Kirk.
Good afternoon. I'm here today once again to speak about the proposed change in the PDU ordinance for the common interest community of D'Andrea and its sub-communities such as Toscana. The Board of Directors of D'Andrea wants to abolish the requirement or the ordinance requiring a tree in the front yard of these communities. They're doing this without any survey of the residents to see if they agree with this or not. There's many of us that don't. There's many of us that believe that when the developers and the city planners thought this out, it's a great ordinance. It assures that this community will remain green and won't be desolate like some of the communities that we've seen in Washoe County. I would respectfully ask you, when this comes before you, to entertain the idea of denying this ordinance change. I know I speak for many of the residents. I'm trying to organize a method for us to get together to discuss these issues in the communities. That will take a while, so I'm going to request that they attend here or send in letters to the city clerk that might be read to you folks. But until you make the decision, you might see my face again. I thank you for your time. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate it. Next, we have Betty Ibarra. Welcome, Betty.
I can speak from here. Good afternoon, and thank you for this
You need,
opportunity.
Betty, you need to come down, please.
Microphone.
I just stepped on my own phone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I too live in Toscana. Next month, I'll be a resident there going on 18 years. And this board at one time did a terrific job of planning the green space around Toscana. We have a board that is trying their darndest to eliminate the trees out of our community. We really do not want to see this community that we bought into be denuded of all greenery and look like some parts of Crater Way. We hope you will listen to us, our plea, and when that comes before you, have good thoughts about keeping things the way they are. Thank you.
Thanks, Betty.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Mayor.
Next, we have Kathleen Evenson. Welcome, Kathleen.
Good afternoon. I too am from Toscana, and I am the face that filed the complaint for 77 homes without trees in their front yard last September. In fact, it was September 7th. And I've been dealing with both boards that are less than honest about this and have tried to fight us on it, and have even told the city that I am a one-man team, and that's not true. That's absolutely not true. 77 homes at that time was 18% of the houses of the 480 homes in Toscana that do not have trees. One tree supports the oxygen for 3 people. And when you look at it that way, it's pretty devastating. And there are sections where 4 or 5 homes in a row have no trees in their front yard. Granted, we have a very lovely community, but it's not what it was 8 years ago when I moved in. And I thought I was being an intelligent, reasonable adult by filing the complaint instead of having multiple people file the same complaint. I thought I was doing it in the best interest of the city's expenses and time. But it hasn't been that way. And we will consider, I understand they have until June 1st now to decide if they're going to submit a change to the PUD. And otherwise, I'm told by officials here that they will go and start their letter campaign again on June 2nd. And I hope you will support us. And if we need to fill this room with more people so you get the idea how important this is to us, we will do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. I live in Toscana myself, and I wouldn't be voting on this. If it comes to the council, I would not vote on it, but I'm certainly in favor of what you're trying to do. I certainly have a very nice tree in my front yard, and thanks to my mother who lived there before me, I bought the house from her, but I lived there before. I bought a house there in 2000. So I was there a long time ago, had to sell it for whatever reasons, but I'm back there now, and I love the community, and I think the trees are an asset, and I don't see why we would want to do away with them. Again, I will not be voting on this when it comes to the council, but I'm in favor of what you're trying to do.
Thank you very much.
And I will state that publicly anytime you need me to. Thank you. All right, any other public comment? Okay, let's go to approval of the agenda. I would like to make one change here. I would like to move the presentation of the budget. First of all, we need to have a public hearing, 10.1. We need to move 10.1 and 9.9 to just below the consent items. We'll hear those right after the consent items. That's the change I'd like to make to the budget, the amendment. So any other changes or things out of order anybody wants to do? Okay, looking for a motion, Mr. Smith.
Move to approve the agenda with the changes 9.9 and 10.1 after consent items.
Mr. Abbott.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Abbott to approve the agenda as that is amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, 6.1, consideration of possible approval of the minutes of the regular Sparks City Council meeting of May 14, 2018. Any omissions, deletions, or corrections? If not, looking for a motion, Mr. Smith.
Move to approve the, it didn't come off there. What are we doing? Move to approve the minutes of May 14th, 2018.
I seen if you were paying attention. Yes, good job. I thought I saw Mr. Dare up there.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Dare to approve the minutes of May 14, 2018. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on. Okay, let's go right to consent items 8.1, 8.2. Anybody want to pull a consent item? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee,
I move to approve consent items 8.1 and 8.2 as presented.
Mr. Abbott.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Bybee, second by Mr. Abbott to approve the consent items 8.1, 8.2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Before we go ahead, whoever's running in back is running my screen up here. Please don't eliminate the people that are doing the motion and the second until I've acknowledged them, please. Okay, let's go right to 10.1, which is public hearing as required by NRS 354.596 to allow public comment on the tentative budget of the City of Sparks for fiscal year 2018-19, to be heard before agenda item 9.6, final budget for possible action. Okay, so any comment, boys, on 10.1?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Steve Driscoll, City Manager. For the record, I have Jeff Kronk, our Financial Services Director here. I will let Jeff explain why we're here and what action we're going to take.
Good
So
afternoon.
one thing, Teresa, if you look at 10.1, it does say 9.6, which probably doesn't make that much difference. That's where I got 9.6 from, just as an explanation. Should read 9.9. Any problem with that, Chet?
No, sir, no.
He's on his, on our screen, it does say.
I apparently have it corrected then.
It is, okay, it's
It's
correct
fine.
on the screen. Good, okay, I didn't look, I just looked at my agenda. All right, go ahead, Steve, I'm sorry.
Okay, good afternoon. Jeff Kronk, Financial Services Director for the record. So here we are, annual. We're looking for your approval for to establish the final budget for next fiscal year. Before we do that, we need to hold a public hearing on the tentative budget for next fiscal year, which was filed before April 15th, which is the statute requirement for filing date. But we don't hold the public hearing until today. So a public hearing first, and then we'll bring back to you the final budget for your approval.
Okay. Anything for you, Steve?
No, sir.
Okay, this is a public hearing item, so I'm gonna open the public hearing to the public. Anyone want to speak on the tentative budget? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. So now we'll go directly to 9.9, is that correct, Mr.? What's your name again?
Correct.
Did you need any action?
No, well, not on the public hearing.
No, we're ready to go, sir.
Okay, 9.9, consideration and possible adoption of the final budget for the City of Sparks for the fiscal year 2018-19 to be heard after the public hearing, agenda item 10.1. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Again, Jeff Kronk, Financial Services Director for the record. Again, as I mentioned before, we're seeking your approval to establish a final budget for fiscal year 19. What we presented to you in April under the City Manager's recommendations book, if you recall, what we're presenting today is essentially the same. There's only been minor changes, certainly nothing that changed or moved the needle, so to speak. So all your policies that you have directed to us over the course of this process of establishing the fiscal 19 budget has been kept intact. So we are looking at a fiscal year 19 budget that's going to encompass all your fiscal policies, highlighted probably by the policy number 1, which is your general fund balance, which would be we're still looking at 8.1 for the current fiscal year, and then as we roll into fiscal 19, that would be the beginning fund balance. So then our ending fund balance in fiscal 19 with a filed budget of 6.4%. So again, we only had a couple of small changes, minor changes essentially that we outlined in the staff report. Didn't really need to go over those specifically unless you had any questions. And other than that, that's all I had to present to you today.
Anything else, Mr. Driscoll?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think that encapsulates where we are. I think what's important to understand about this budget is that we start early. We've been working on this since the October-November timeframe. We've been in front of the council. This is our 3rd time, and this is a budget that is based on your policies, and then we do the detail work to match your policies. So with that, we'll answer any questions that the council has.
Questions, Mr. Lawson?
Well, just a comment, is our finance department does an awesome job. What were we within 0.5% last year of our budget?
If that, yeah, we were
Oh,
spot.
better than a half.
We were spot on.
My apologies.
Spot on.
So, that's pretty darn good on $70 million, general fund budget. So, good job to you guys.
Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Smith?
No, I have the same comments, but I'm really ready to make a motion.
Go for it.
Any other questions? Okay, look for a motion, Mr. Smith.
Okay, I move to adopt the final budget for the city of Sparks for fiscal year 2018-19 as presented.
Mr. Dare.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Dare to approve 9.9, the final budget for the city of Sparks for fiscal year 2018-19. Any other questions? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Again, Steve Driscoll for the record. I just want to go on the record to thank our team, the budget team, which is led by Stacy Hammerling. They spend a lot of time and a lot of effort. And the biggest effort that they spend is they've taken over the last several years. They've become the true consultants to the departments to understand the daily operations, to understand what's connected to what. And so when we start working with things, we have a tendency to get our projections very, very close because we're not dropping the ball on things. And so Stacy and her team are unbelievable. They're led by Jeff, and all the department heads and the different budget managers are the ones that really bring this together. That's why it matches your policies, and that's why we're able to do the fiscal responsibility that you demand of us, and we're proud to do it on your behalf. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Driscoll, for that. You know, I want to echo what Mr. Driscoll said. You guys are tremendous, Stacy. Tremendous job. Every year, year after year after year, I've been here probably 18 times. I've gone through the budget. Don't pretend to understand it like you folks do, even though I come from a financial background. I still don't understand it like you folks do. And government budgets are a little bit different than other budgets that I've dealt with, but it's good to see you guys are in charge, and I feel very comfortable with what you guys do. So, Mr. Smith.
You know, I don't think people realize that this council and everybody sitting in this audience, we start this in October, November of last year to come up with the budget. So we completely cover everything. We have workshops and with the staff's help, they make us explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, or what we can't do and why we can't do it. So it means a lot to us. I've seen other entities that they act like they've never seen the budget until it's presented to them, and that might be the case. But I think that the city of Sparks does a great job on presenting their budgets, and I appreciate all of that. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah, nobody can say we haven't worked hard on this thing. The staff especially, and the council too, has worked hard to understand it. So I appreciate the council's work and all the stuff you've done. Really, it's been tremendous by everybody. So,
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words.
Thank you.
all right, let's move on to 9.1. Consideration and possible approval of the mayor's recommendation of appointment to the airport noise and panel for the following pool of applicants listed in alphabetical order. I think there was only one that applied, David Chockett, and he's already on there. So I'm looking for comments or a motion. Okay, I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
Move to approve Mr. Shockett.
Mr. Dare.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Dare to approve 9.1 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. 9.2, consideration and possible approval of the mayor's recommendation of the appointment to the Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee, EFAC, from the following pool of applicants listed in alphabetical order: Ted Erkin and Robert Sandoval, and I'm recommending Ted Erkin. Any discussion? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve the mayor's recommendation of Ted Erkin for the EFAC.
Mr. Abbott.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Lawson, seconded by Mr. Abbott to approve 9.2 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. 9.3, discussion and possible approval of payment of $10,000 donation to Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful, KTMB, for possible action.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the
Driscoll
council.
and-
Steve Driscoll for the record. And I also have with me,
Christy Chacarolo, Executive Director of Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful.
Welcome, Christie.
so this item is part of your process as you define it. During the budget, we have donations, payments to other governments that you approve. We identify them, and this is one of those. We have a long-standing relationship with Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful. They do an unbelievable job for us. They supplement a lot of maintenance in the Parks and Rec area. They concentrate on some very specific areas, very specific things. It's a partnership that we rely heavily. This is the time and place for you to give final approval for a $10,000 payment to them for the work that they do on our behalf as you budgeted for fiscal 18. Prepared to answer any questions you might have myself or Christie.
Questions for Mr. Driscoll, Ms. Bybee?
I just had one question. This is included in our budget for the upcoming year, correct?
This is the current year's budget,
Yes.
so it's in fiscal 18, and you did do something similar in fiscal 19 for next year as well.
Okay, I was just confused because on budget status, it says over budget, but then below it says payment requested. I just wanted a clarification.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's just, it's the timing where we put the money in before we take it out.
Okay, perfect,
it's
thank
good.
you.
Any other questions? Okay, looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee?
I move to approve payment of $10,000 to keep Truckee Meadows beautiful.
Mr. Dare?
And I'll second that and say thank you as well. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, moved by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Mr. Dare to approve 9.3 as the approval of payment of $10,000 to keep Truckee Meadows beautiful. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Christie. Thanks, Christie, for what you guys do. It's a great organization, so keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's move on to 9.4, consideration and possible approval of the 2018 CDBG street improvements, 8th Street and 16th Street project, federally funded, bid number 1718.016, PWPWA 2018-129, contract AC 5476 to Granite Construction Company in an amount of $639,639. How the heck did that happen? Amber, go ahead.
Mayor Martini, members of council, I'm before you today seeking approval for a construction contract for the 2018 CDBG Street Improvement Project.
One thing,
CDBG.
Amber, could you identify yourself?
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Amber Sosa, Transportation Manager.
Thank you.
For the record, CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant. The proposed contract before you would be with Granite Construction in the aforementioned $639,639.
Really had that pencil going real tight there, dear.
This project is part of the city's federally approved HUD's CDBG Annual Action Plan, and it's in accordance with their 5-year consolidated plan for 2015 through 2019. Oh, great, we have the map up. So just to orientate yourself with this map, to the left or the west would be Rock Boulevard. To the bottom and south a little bit is G Street and Prater. And to the right and to the east would be 15th Street in the vicinity of Sparks High School. The shaded area represents the limits of this project. Those areas currently have deteriorated roadway section, failing curb and gutter, deteriorating sidewalk and driveways. This project would fully replace all of the curb and gutter, all of the sidewalk, all of the driveway approaches, as well as upgrade pedestrian ramps, as well as a fully repaved street section. On April 11th, the city received 4 qualified bidders, with Granite being the low bidder. The $639,639 is being proposed through 2 funding sources. The first would be $425,000, which would be federally funded through HUD's CDBG program, with the remainder $214,639 is being proposed from the redevelopment fund for Area 1. This project is fully within that area. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Amber? Okay, seeing no questions, I'm looking for
Yeah, you better make a motion. You're getting all.
looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, of course I'll take that motion. I move to approve the contract for the 2018 CDBG street improvements to Granite Construction Company in the amount of $639,000. Oh, man, let me start over. $639,639.
Holy Columbus, you weren't a finance student in
wasn't,
college,
no,
were you? I didn't
no.
think so.
I was more in PE.
Mr. Lawson,
I'm gonna second that.
good, without saying how much money it is.
Yeah, with no comment on how Ward Two needs some streets fixed too.
Good point.
You're not gonna mention that.
Okay, any
not gonna
further
mention it.
discussion? Okay, seeing none, please vote. Come on, Christopher. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Amber. Good job. Okay, let's go to 9.5, consideration, discussion, and possible decision regarding a settlement offer in civil rights case. Go ahead, Allison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick for the record. This item asks you to consider whether to reject or accept a settlement offer in a civil rights case. The plaintiff in this matter, his name is Lionel Irving, and he alleges that in September of 2015, he was shot by a Sparks police officer in violation of his civil rights, in addition to some other allegations. The case is currently proceeding in the Federal District Court for the state of Nevada, or for the District of Nevada, excuse me. And the plaintiff, through his attorney, has offered to dismiss this case in exchange for $50,000.
Questions for Amber? Mr. Dare?
I'm just ready to make a motion when we're ready.
No questions? Okay, go ahead, Christopher.
Based on the advice of the city attorney's office, I move to reject plaintiff Lionel Irving's settlement offer of $50,000 and pursue further negotiations and/or litigation of Mr. Irving's claims.
Second, Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Dare, seconded by Mr. Smith to reject regarding the settlement offer in the civil rights case of, what's his name again?
Lionel Irving.
Lionel Irving.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I don't have it down here. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously, okay. Next is 9.6, consideration, discussion, and possible direction to the city attorney to initiate 3 civil forfeiture cases on behalf of the city relating to Sparks Police Department case numbers. Go ahead, Amber.
Thank you. Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick for the record.
One
NRS chapters 179 and 453 allow for a city to seek the forfeiture of proceeds from certain drug-related offenses. Each of the 3 cases under Sparks Police Department case numbers 18-1261, 18-1487, and 18-3355 all involved arrests for drug-related offenses and the seizure of U.S. currency from the individuals who were arrested. The period within which a civil forfeiture case can be filed is relatively short. It's 120 days from the date of the seizure. But these actions, if you were to grant approval to the city attorney's office to file them, they would be stayed pending the disposition of the criminal cases. Each of the charges in the cases are handled criminally by the district attorney's office, not the city attorney's office. If you granted approval to the city attorney's office to proceed with filing these 3 forfeiture actions, the city attorney would file a civil complaint in the district court, along with a motion to stay the actions pending disposition of the criminal case. Proceeds from any of the civil forfeiture cases, if we were to be successful in pursuing those cases, would be divided between the Sparks Police Department and the city attorney's office. If a civil forfeiture case is not initiated in each of these instances, Sparks Police Department would need to attempt to return the money to the individuals from whom it was seized, and if that was not ultimately successful, it would eventually go to the state. The city attorney recommends that city council direct the city attorney's office to initiate these 3 civil forfeiture cases on behalf of the city relating to the case numbers listed. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Mr. Lawson?
So we're gonna start seeing more of these as we go forward here. I'm trying to get a feel for how much of this we do, and we talked a little bit about the cost to try and chase these people down and file against them, but I'd like to see what it looks like over the next 6 months or so, so we get an idea as a council what's going on.
Yes, currently on my desk, I have, besides these 3 cases, one other possible forfeiture case that I would bring to you at a later date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bybee?
Could you please give us the approximate total of these 3 cases, monetary total?
I'm not great at math, so I'm just gonna list the amounts for you.
Okay, thank you.
One is $680, one is $882, and one is $1,090.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted that more for other people that are watching. It's in our notes here,
Yes.
but just so that people have an idea of what kind of money we're talking about in this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, looking for a motion. We're on, Mr. Smith.
Based on the advice of the city attorney's office, I move to direct the city attorney to initiate 3 civil forfeiture cases on behalf of the city relating to Sparks Police Department case numbers 18-1261, 18-1487, and 18-3355.
We have a second, Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Lawson to approve agenda item 9.6 is outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks,
Thank you.
Allison, appreciate it. Okay, 9.7, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of resolution number 3334 by the Sparks City Council, directing the placement of an advisory question on the November 2018 Sparks general election ballot, asking Sparks voters if the office of Sparks City Attorney should be continued to be elected, nonpartisan office in Sparks government. You are bringing this to us, Mr. Adams?
Chet Adams.
As the presenter, Chet, you have 10 minutes to plead your case, 10 minutes or less is
I think
good.
after my last PowerPoint, you're gonna
What's
make
that?
sure, I think after my last PowerPoint, you're gonna make sure I was only up here for 10 minutes.
Exactly. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name, for the
Ms.
record, my
Clerk,
name
if
is
you
Chet
would,
Adams, the
sign this,
city
please.
attorney. Agenda item 9.7. Now, this resolution seeks to place an advisory question on the November 2018 general election ballot, asking Sparks's voters if they wish to retain their right to vote for their city attorney. Now, the reason for this resolution is twofold. First, during our last legislative session, the Nevada legislature attempted to unilaterally take away our citizens' right to vote for their city attorney without asking the citizens whether they wanted to give up that right. Now, the legislation passed, but ultimately, and thanks to the hard work for the city council, the mayor, and our legislative team, Governor Sandoval vetoed that piece of legislation. Secondly, many of your current appointees to the Sparks Charter Committee are asking for possible charter language that would take away our citizens' right to vote for their city attorney, once again, without consulting with the citizens. Now, Sparks citizens have voted twice, once in 1974 and again in 1991, and they have been abundantly clear that they want the ability to vote for their city attorney. Now, before the Nevada legislature or the Sparks Charter Committee move forward in their attempts to take away the voting right from our citizens, this advisory question should first be presented to the citizens of Sparks, who are the government of Sparks, for their input into whether they want to give up their right to vote for one of their governmental officials. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thanks, Chet.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr., what's his name, Mr. Chet Adams, our city attorney? Mr. Smith?
Well, I have a question. I don't know if this is for the city manager or for Chet. But if we pass this doesn't override the charter committee. Charter committee can do what they want to do, and then once they vote to, if they vote to keep it as an elected position or an appointed position, it's got to be approved at the legislature and we're done, right?
Correct, correct. This will not appear until the November general election. Charter Committee would conclude their business beforehand.
Charter Committee, I think, is meeting in June to discuss this for a second time. My question is this mute? Moot? Not mute, moot? If they make their decision in June?
If they make the decision in June, after this city council has approved a resolution to present it to the voters, and the voters are prevented from either their input and their right to vote is taken away from them without their input, then you're right, it will be moot.
It would also be moot if they decide as a charter committee to keep it just the way it is.
The only reason I would disagree with that, sir, is that the Nevada legislature was very clear in this last session that this is something that they believe appropriate because neither Sparks nor Reno have followed the line with all the other charter cities in Nevada. And because of our citizens' desire to put their input into this particular issue, I think that would go a long way if the Nevada legislature were to look at this one more time.
If I may, is this time sensitive, Mr. Manager? I mean, if we put this off till after the charter committee meeting to make it a vote that actually counts?
I can answer that if you'd like. An advisory question has to be placed in the office of the Washoe County Registrar of Voters no later than June 6th. So it is time sensitive.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And I think what Mr. Adams is trying to get to here is he wants to see what the voters think. Which even though the charter committee could make it moot, then the legislature doesn't have to approve what the charter committee brings there, do they? If they see that the people don't want this to be a non-elected place, or they want an elected city attorney, that goes a long way in telling the legislature, look, we don't want you to change this because our people said this, or whatever they say. They might vote against it. So I see that as the main reason why Chet is doing this. Whether it's moot before the charter committee does anything or not doesn't make any difference. He is just trying to make sure that the legislature knows what our people in Sparks think.
And Mr. Mayor, I agree with you 100%. I mean, they voted, this has been an advisory question twice, and you mentioned the dates. And at both times, the Sparks citizens said they want to keep it as an elected position.
Right.
I believe that that's the way it should be. But, this is something I guess we have to deal with because it's coming out of the legislature.
Well, simply because the charter committee decides to open up the charter and present some proposed language, we still have to find a friendly legislator in the Nevada legislature. Ultimately, it has to be voted on. And I think that, as Mayor Martini has pointed out, what our citizens want, which has not even been a consideration in all these past deliberations in the last legislative session. The only objection I've got so far is that, well, what happens if the citizens don't elect the right people? Well, that's our form of government. That's our representative form of government. Unless we want to become an oligarchy or something like that, then, and like I said, the citizens are the government. I mean, we need to ask them what they want. And if they don't want to do this, and if it's a burden on them, then fine. But regardless of how this goes, these deliberations, ignoring what our citizens have said, I think, not appropriate.
You know, Chet, other than the people elected in the city of Sparks, I do question some of the people that get elected too. I agree with that. Ms. Bobby, Sparks notwithstanding, we don't elect the wrong people, so go ahead, Ms. Bobby.
I just want to say that I believe strongly that we should take it to the voters because I think that the voters in this city have a right to make that decision. And there's so much the legislature controls already, from fiscal to NRS, the home rule, which I'm really more in favor of more local control, because on the local level, I think we know best. We know what's best for Sparks that would be different than Ely or Vegas or someplace else. So I think to protect our residents and the wishes of our residents, which we don't know till we put it on the ballot, whether residents still support us voting for city attorney or if they've changed their mind. But I think we owe it to them to keep it on the ballot, and I think it would bring a strong argument to the legislature if it should come up again for the legislators to decide, and for the charter committee too. So I absolutely support bringing it to the voters again. Thank you.
You know, it's a novel concept, Chet, to have our people decide what they want, you know, our voters. That's a novel concept. I haven't heard of that before. Mr. Lawson?
So I'm just a little not real comfortable, just because we only hear Chet's side of it and we haven't heard from the other side at all. And,
What
And there's-
other side?
is to have an appointed city attorney.
Well, that's what the people are gonna tell you. That's
So,
the other
and
side.
just to, because we don't deliberate at the dais here, but these are publicly noticed meetings and not one person showed up to see a charter committee meeting or put any input in one side or the other. So the ability to have your voice heard is there. So it's just not being done. And for me, it really doesn't matter one way or the other. And I'm okay with leaving it on and put it on the ballot, but I think it's been extremely one-sided at this point, and I don't think that's fair to the citizens either. They only get one point of view.
Well, it's the same as the budget. Did you see anybody here for the budget today? Okay, we've done this year after year after year. 19 years I've been here doing the budget, and we've never had, well, maybe once or twice we had public comment on the budget, but not very often. So this is the same thing to me. We're not gonna get people to show up unless they're very passionate about something they wanna talk against.
Trees.
Like the trees. See, these people are here, they wanna talk against the trees, or wanna talk for the trees. So I just have, I don't know where the
And
others,
the other side of
is
it for
not
me
here.
too is the charter committee is not bind to anybody.
Yeah.
They are a representation of the community appointed by this board and state legislators. So that they are a representation of the community. They live in our communities and they're making decisions based on what the people have told them too. So, like I said, I'm okay with leaving it on there. I just think, like I said, it's been one-sided. So if there's a way to make it more even, I'd be happier.
Mr. Dare.
I think it's good if the legislators are making some final decision to have the bigger story, just that they have all the pieces of the story in place, and that includes ours, and I do think both sides. I mean, obviously, there are two different ways to do this, and the other way is not necessarily wrong, but this is how we've done this, and this is what we've done. And so, but looking at it, if there is a change that they're looking at, I think it is wise to get as much of the whole story there as possible. So, with that, if you'd like, I can make a motion.
Go ahead.
If you'd like. With that said, I move to adopt resolution number 3331 to augment, I'm sorry, am I saying the wrong one?
3334.
Oh, let me read this. I'm reading the wrong one. I move to adopt resolution number 3334, authorizing the placement of an advisory question on the November 2018 Sparks general election ballot, asking Sparks voters if the office of the Sparks City Attorney should continue to be elected nonpartisan office.
Mr. Smith,
I'll second with a comment, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
do not mind.
Okay, concerning Mr. Lawson's comments, there's nobody here for the other side either. So there's nobody here for either side. So as far as picking sides, and I don't get that argument. And I really don't care what the voters want to do. Whatever they want to do, that's what we'll do. So give them the chance. They make that decision.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Dare, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. 9.8, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of resolution number 3331 to augment the fiscal year budget 18 by $7,121,043 in various funds to provide appropriations for capital project improvements, but not completed in prior years. Go ahead.
Stacy Hemmerling.
Stacy.
Thanks. Stacy Hemmerling, Budget Administrator. Good afternoon. This item is looking to to augment the current year's budget. As background, the City Council approves a capital improvement plan each year. Certain of those projects do not get completed within the year. And if they weren't encumbered, if we didn't bid them and award a bid and cut a purchase order for them. There is no process to automatically augment the next year's budget to complete them. So finance staff works with community services to identify those projects that were not completed, were not encumbered in the prior year, but are still viable projects. Attachment A is the list of those projects totaling about $7 million this year. So the next step we do is to determine that there are resources available to cover those augmentations. We've done that, and there are. And so this item just, you would be adopting the resolution to approve that augmentation. We take that along with the forms that are included, B1 through B6 in this packet, send them to the Department of Taxation, and that makes it official. And we have appropriations to cover those costs and not run into a budget violation situation. That's all I have.
Questions, Mr. Lawson?
So just for clarification, Stacy, what we're talking about is taking the $7 million we didn't spend and just putting it into fiscal year 19.
Yes, providing the
So
budget there.
that's
We did not spend it.
For the people out there that don't understand that
Yes.
part. This is not a new $7 million we're found someplace. It's money that we had already appropriated.
That's correct.
Mr. Abbott?
And then, if we don't complete it this year, can we move it again?
We can.
If, hopefully not, but.
I hope that we don't, because it,
Yeah.
you know, that it is administratively a lot of paperwork, but yes, we could.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dare?
And does it stay earmarked on the particular construction items that it was on this year, or does it shift up to just a new CP? How does that?
We work very hard to keep those appropriations attached to the project that you approved. And again, that's why this going more than 1 year, it does get difficult. But we in finance, we're pretty serious about that the council approved these particular projects. These appropriations are for those projects, not to be spread amongst other things.
And if there's any changes, that would come to us
Yes.
before it would change.
The community services would be amending the CIP and telling you we're going to do this and not this.
I assume that, but I wanted to officially hear that. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Bybee?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Go for it.
I move to adopt resolution number 3331 to augment the fiscal year 18 capital projects funds, enterprise fund, and internal service fund budgets.
Do you have a second? Mr. Abbott?
I'll second it.
Moved by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Mr. Abbott to approve agenda item 9.8. The augmentation is outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 9.9 we've done, 10.1 we've done, 11.1 consideration, discussion, and possible approval of resolution number 3333, adopting the revised land use assumptions, capital improvements plan, and imposition of impact fees for impact fee service area number 1. Mr. Martini, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Martini, members of the council. I'm John Martini, your Community Services Director. I'm here before you today, once again, looking at the land use assumptions, the CIP, and the fees associated with our impact fee service area 1. As a background item, the council will recall that on October 27th of 2016, ordinance number 2531 was approved, which annexed 2 parcels of land of approximately 67.4 acres located generally along the southwest corner of the intersection of Pyramid Lake Highway and Highland Ranch Parkway, better known as the Highland Ranch annexation. On October 17th, 2017, representatives for the property owner petitioned the city to include these 2 properties in impact fee service area 1.
Rich, can I have the overhead, please?
Before you is the boundary of our impact fee service area. For the council's orientation, north is straight up on the page. I know I've showed you this figure many times. It's probably becoming emblazoned in your mind when you go to sleep at night, but the northern boundary of impact fee service area 1 generally follows La Posada, To the east, it is bounded by the foothills at Wingfield, Highlands, and Upper Highlands. As we come around south, it goes south of Golden Eagle Park, comes up along the southern boundary of the vistas, or the vista side of the Wingfield Springs Planned Unit Development, then swings down into the Kylie Southern Development area over to the Galleria, then moves north along its western border along Pyramid Highway and back to La Posada. The land that was annexed and is proposed to be included in Impact Fee Service Area 1 is the, if I can find the mouse here, this area on the western side, and I don't, well, my pointer keeps going and disappearing. I apologize to the council. It's kind of the blob of land sitting there on the, can you see it okay? Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I can't see it on my screen. That is the area for your consideration to be annexed or to be included in Impact Fee Service Area 1. After staff received the petition, as you recall, this may sound familiar, that's because we were before you on December 12th of 2016 doing a 3-year periodic update of Impact Fee Service Area 1. The procedures that we follow when someone petitions or asks to be inside the Impact Fee Service Area are generally the same by state law, with just a couple of exceptions that we'll go through. In response to that, we once again retained House Moran Consultants. If the council will recall, we're required to reanalyze the capital improvements plan and do an update of the land uses. So your community services staff crunches all the land use data, so we try and catch up with any changes to handbooks, the number of building permits that have been issued. We then feed that information to the consultant. We then, your city engineer, and this time, and I took a look at what's included in the capital improvements plan. For the council's memory, the CIP items that are included in Impact Fee Service Area 1, of course, is fire station improvements to support the area, construction of the main sewer lines, we call them the interceptors, both the northeast and the northwest were included. Our regional park facilities, mainly our trail system and regional park, some monies were used for GERP. And then lastly, of course, as we tested about a year ago now, our flood control system that you'll see the smile on my face, it worked pretty well. And this financing mechanism allowed for that work to be done to go in conjunction with the development. So I mentioned that something is different. A petition of its own is not a reason to include something in an impact fee area. We have to do a couple of things first. We have to determine there is a nexus, meaning a reason to include it in the impact fee area. And then we have to have a method to provide for proportionality of the fees, should you choose to impose them on that property. So your community services and legal staff took a look at the Highland Ranch annexation. As we sit today, the storm drain runoff, it's undeveloped land, but it naturally runs off into the current impact fee area channels, mainly the Sun Valley Diversion Channel, which is the big channel that takes it right to the Kylie Dam from the west side of Pyramid. Future sewer flows would flow to the Northwest Interceptor, which was financed and constructed through this program. It will be served. Upon annexation, we become the primary responders for fire. We are today. It will be served by a future Fire Station 6. That is, again, a nexus to include it. And then finally, it is reasonable, since the proposed land use is commercial and that we do have properties on the west side of Pyramid, that any future residential users, if the council will recall, although they are seeking C2 zoning through a CUP that could include construction of multifamily, we did find that it is reasonable to assume that should residential go on that side, they would be able to utilize the trail system in our regional parks that are included. Therefore, we feel there is a nexus for inclusion, and if you will, if we don't include this in Impact Fee Service Area 1, then any development of this site will come at very much to their benefit. They will not be paying the same fees as anyone else out in the valley using the same infrastructure, if you will. And then finally, we have to find a proportionality to the fee should we choose to impose it, should you choose to impose it. That is the report that was prepared by House Moran Consulting. That is the piece that state law requires us to do. We have to relook at the land use, relook at the CIP. As we looked at the CIP, we did not find that inclusion of this property will require any addition to the capital improvement program. We feel it will fit in the existing program as it sits today. However, in the analysis, you probably noticed the cost to build that were increased by inflation since the last time we did it in 16. So about 2 more years of inflation going forward. Along the path to get here, we had House Moran start this back in February. We did take it to the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. As a council remember, years ago, the City Council, through resolution, named the Planning Commission the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. We took it to them in March. It was approved. And after that approval by the Capital Improvements Program, or Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, we were scheduled to come to council when one of our developers came in and said, John, the flood fees just look wrong. They look too low. So sure enough, we took a look at that first set of work we did, and we did have an error. Thank you, development community, for supporting this program and actually coming in and saying, boy, that fee is too low. It doesn't look right. We got with the consultant. We did find some of the coding that was done to calculate the fees were wrong. We revised the report, which is now the April House Moran report, which is attached to your staff report today. It is correct. When we did find an error, Mr. Erickson and the consultant and I went through every one of the impact fee calculations to make sure they're right. And as I sit here today, we've done all we can to ensure that the process and formulas have been done properly. So we have a nexus, we have proportionality. The resolution that is before you today will do several things. And you state that there is a nexus. You do find that there's proportionality through the work done by House Moran. And should you choose to approve it, these updated fees would be subject to everything within the boundary shown, which includes the Highland Ranch. We will put down a new legal description for the boundary that will include the Highland Ranch property. And lastly, you will impose an impact fee for all new construction, even though we already have one, but it's treated anew, if you will. And the question in your mind is, how did the fees come out? Inclusion of the Highland Ranch properties added about 374 service units into the program. It had a very de minimis effect. You will see that, for instance, the single-family rate is going down by about 5%. The multifamily rate is going up by about 2%. Business park, general commercial, and public facilities are staying within that 1 to 5% range. And then lastly, you'll notice that there's a 13% reduction in the tourist commercial land use category overall impact fee. That is not caused at all by addition of the Highland Ranch property. What we found is the tourist commercial zoning district that we have within Impact Fee Service Area 1, which is famously or infamously known as the Lazy 8 Casino. We had the wrong acreage in GIS, and as our very astute GIS folks continue to clean up our land use, we're getting closer and closer to very good tight data. That's what caused that reduction. There was a actual reduction in the number of acres just due to a mistake that we've been carrying with us for a while, but has now been corrected as well. So again, we have a nexus, we have proportionality. These would be the impact fees that you would impose on all the properties out there should you choose to approve Resolution 3333. And before I sign off and answer questions, I'd like to thank our Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee, Development Services Users Group, I believe that Sparks is very lucky. We have a group of developers who have supported this impact fee system for nearly 20 years now, and to the point where they are willing to stand up and say, John, you've got an error. It would be in my benefit, but not, it would be definitely to the detriment of what we're doing out there. I appreciate that very much. And then finally, I'd like to thank Allison McCormick. We hadn't had a petition to join in I don't know how long. I think right after I started here, we had some properties added in. We couldn't remember how to do it. So I went to Ms. McCormick, said, please figure it out, and she did. And that is the resolution you see before you today. She constructed it for this meeting. With that, I'll answer any questions should you have them.
One comment, John, the phrase that you used, the Lazy 8 Casino, is not allowed to be used in this council chambers ever again.
I do apologize, Mr. Mayor. I know
never
that
be-
caused a
should
few
never be on
hours
the
in here.
record again, okay?
Yes, sir.
Flogging.
Okay.
We're bringing back flogging.
Exactly.
I will look forward to it.
Eight flogs, okay. Mr. Dare.
I just want to say, one, thank you to the staff. As we get to walk through some of this stuff, we learn that something that seems like this one word, you've been working on this for a long time now. We've had a lot of conversations, and you've had a lot more than I've had, and your staff. So this is very important, though, a very important resolution. We need to have the help out there. We need our fire station going in. We need to make sure that we're ready, the sewage, all the things you're talking about. When we talk to a lot of our residents, they talk about growth, does growth pay for growth? And the truth is, it'd be nice to even find ways to even find other stuff, but it's awesome seeing finances come in that are being put away for these needs, and we definitely need a fire station out there. There's so much growth. And so I just want to say thank you for putting it together, and without question, it is valuable, and it's important that our residents do know that there is money coming in that are impact fees to help pay for growth. It's not, as you guys come in, this money will help.
Thank you.
Ivy.
I just had one point I wanted to clarify. So these are the new fees that would be spread amongst everyone in IFSA 1, and that so Highlands Ranch, whatever development they decide to do with that 67 acres would be according to the land use, and those fees are all set. So they will pay, as well as anyone else in that service area, that impact fee, depending on what development that they're bringing.
That is correct, Councilwoman Bybee. Should you approve Resolution 3333 that's before you today, effective July 1st, which is, coming up on us quick, the fees that you see on that table called proposed 2018 impact fee total, those would become the new fees on July 1st. Should you choose not to approve this resolution, then the current, the column that's next to it for comparison would remain the impact fees until we hit the 3-year update. So if you approve them, we get a new fee. If you don't, we just stick with the old one.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, John. Why is the Parks and Recreation fee $833? I thought it used to be $1,000. Is it that, so this is a change you're making? This will be a permanent change for everybody?
There are, that confusion happens often, Mr. Mayor. We have two funding mechanisms. This is the impact fee for regional parks. The $1,000 I think that you have in your mind is the residential construction tax that is imposed on single-family and multifamily homes.
My bad. Any other questions, Mr. Dare?
I'm ready to make a motion if everybody else is ready for that.
Gotta have a public hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
So any other questions? Okay, so I'll open the public hearing. This is a public hearing item. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for action now, Mr. Dare.
I've got a question. Was this agendized? Is this a public hearing item?
Yeah.
Planning and zoning, public hearings and action items.
I see under the subheading. So, okay.
So,
That's what we're
it's
going
not a
for.
public hearing item?
No, it is.
This looks familiar. I mean, it's something
Yeah,
we
I just
do every
I just
week.
don't want anybody showing up later on and saying, hey, I didn't get notice that it was supposed to be a public hearing, but I'll ask Madam Clerk, is this typically how we agendize public hearings? Under the subsection 11?
It typically is not. We typically do include public hearing. It was an oversight on our part.
Okay.
Say that again.
We typically have the words public hearing in the title, but it was an oversight on the clerk's department.
You have to bring it back again, John.
So we're in trouble? Chet?
Well, nobody's in trouble yet.
Don't pull any punches.
You're not in trouble yet. I just, you know, it was legally noticed. People have an opportunity to speak on these. So whether or not it's scheduled as a public hearing or not, in the event that there's some consequences, you may have to redo it, that's all.
All right, thank you. Looking for a motion, Mr. Dare.
If you don't mind, I've been informed by our city manager that I'm allowed to have my guest read the motion, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So,
Go ahead, Sam.
I move to approve resolution number 3333, adopting the revised land assumption capital improvement plan and imposition of impact fees for impact fees service area number 1.
Thank you, Sam. Do I have a second? Ms. Bybee.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Dare and Sam, and seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve item number 11.1 is outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
I get it, okay.
Passes unanimously. Thanks,
Thank you,
John.
Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate it. Okay, 12, comments from the public. I have one public, card for a public motion, and I have Bill, but I can't read your last name. Wagner, come on down, Bill. Come on down, Bill.
Doesn't that face look familiar?
Yeah.
Oh, now I see who we're talking about, okay.
it's famous.
Now I recognize you.
You recognize.
Good, Bill.
All right. Mr. Mayor, it's nice to see you in the King's Chair again.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor-to-be, City Council. My name is Bill Wagner, and I'm here to talk about Los Altos Parkway, PCN 18-0019. The developer in this is the Landstar Companies LLC. The project will be coming to your way on July 9th. Just kind of preparing you a little bit. Master plan that Landstar is working off is 30 years old. Things have changed, right? The original plan was for 64 units. Now it's 75 units and it can go as high as 90. On May 15th, approximately 75 plus HOA homeowners attended a meeting in which the statement continuously was made, we do not want this. So when it comes to you folks, remember that, please. We do not want this. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Wagner. Anyone else under public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to 12.2 comments from the mayor, city council, or city manager. Mr. Smith.
There's a project that I've been working on for quite a few years now. Matter of fact, it was envisioned 5 years after I was born in 1954. It was approved in 1964, and on July the 6th at 11 a.m., we're having the grand opening of the Southeast Connector, or Veterans Parkway. So I would love everybody to be there to celebrate the grand opening of this road. It's going to be a lifesaver for this community as far as alleviating traffic on McCarran and 580 and 395 and name a few more.
Exactly.
Okay, so remember that day, July the 6th? In full disclosure, they wanted to do it the week before, but I'm going to be out of town and I want to be there for this. So July 6th is our grand opening.
Anybody else? Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have an announcement to make. The following committee appointment is available. Civil Service Commission, 2 members for a 3-year term. Parks and Recreation Commission, 2 members for a 3-year term. Technical Review Committee for the Washoe County Home Consortium, one member for a 3-year term, and the Enterprise Fund Advisory Board, one member for a 2-year term, and this member must be from the residential construction industry. Persons interested in serving on these committees should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. You would click on the government tab on the web page, then under boards and commissions, click volunteering for a Sparks board or commission, then fill out the online application and submit. Applications will be accepted until the close of business on Thursday, May 31st, 2018. Thank you, sir.
Any comments? Okay, number 13, seeing no further business, we are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting of Tuesday, May 29th with the roll call.
Chairperson Bybee?
Here.
Agency members Abbott?
Here.
Lawson? Smith?
Here.
Martini?
Here.
Dare? Agency Attorney Adams?
Here.
Chief Administrative Officer Driscoll?
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Public comment. Do I have any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Move to item 4.1, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
I have a motion by Agency Member Martini. Do I have a second? Member Dare?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
How'd I do?
Trying to get mine to
Okay.
work here.
Here we go. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 5, 5.1, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the
Move to
minutes.
approve, Madam Chair.
Sparks Development Agency, April 23rd. Motion by Agency Member Martini, second by Agency Member Smith. Any discussion? Please vote.
Push that little button there, Gino.
Okay, carries unanimously. Item number 6, 6.1, reports of claims and bills approved for payment and appropriation transfers for
Move
the
to approve,
period
Madam Chair.
April 5th through May 9th. Motion by Agency Member Martini, who's moving faster than the chair is. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Agency Member Dare. Any discussion? Please vote.
We missed you, Gino.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 6.2, review and possible ratification by the Sparks Redevelopment Agency of 4 contracts with WOW One Day Painting, Triumph Electric, Inc., PowerCom Solutions, Inc., and Coach Elevator Company, awarded by the Sparks City Council utilizing Redevelopment Area 1 funds for renovation of the City of Sparks parking garage, APN 032-341-33, adjacent to the Victorian Square Movie Theater, in a total amount not to exceed $348,731.64. Mr. Ornelas.
Approved by the City Council. These are for projects to renovate the city-owned parking garage adjacent to the Victorian Square Movie Theater. The contracts that are the subject of this agenda item were approved by the City Council at 3 different meetings between March 26th and April 23rd, and they were for painting, additional and backup lighting, the security camera system replacement, and for retrofit of the elevator cabs. The funding for the projects was budgeted in the CIP for the 2017-18 to 2021-22 period, and the funds are from the capital improvements funds for redevelopment area 1. And in reality, there are proceeds from the sale of land to Silverwing Development. Because these are redevelopment agency funds, the expenditure of these funds should have originally been approved by the redevelopment agency. So this is a corrective measure to rectify that oversight.
Move to approve, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Do I have any questions?
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Mr. Lawson, do you have a?
Second for discussion. So,
Okay. I have a motion and a second.
The CCTVs, are we gonna monitor those?
They will be recorded. They will not be actively monitored, is my understanding, Councilman Wilson.
Because doesn't that present us with a risk if we have an implied security there by having a camera?
I think the intent, Councilman Lawson, is to be able to, determine what happened after the fact, but it is my
I'm
understanding.
asking, does this open us up for a lawsuit if somebody gets beat up in the parking lot and we don't have the recording?
For the record, this is Brian Cason, Capital Projects Manager. The system will be hooked up through a network connection to the police department because of the volume or basically the capacity of bandwidth that it takes up. It won't be monitored 24/7. It has a recorder within the garage that can be accessed from the police department. And they can view it, like during special events, they could actually hook up to it and view it live during the events. It's not something we're gonna have somebody constantly monitoring though. And there are recordings up to, I think it's back 3 or 4 weeks or more is what that thing will hold. So it may even be more than that. I don't remember. I'd have to check on that, but it is monitored. It is hooked up to a network. Just because of the bandwidth, we can't, it'll take up too much bandwidth to sit there and have it monitored constantly.
Well, ask the question the third time.
So I think, Councilman Lawson, I think perhaps that's a question that maybe more appropriately would be answered by either Mr. Marin or our city attorney's office. And if we need to bring it back, we will, but.
To me, that's my greatest concern. If somebody sues us because we have implied security for security cameras.
Why don't you let us look it over again, we'll bring it back. How's that sound? I think Councilman Lawson's concerns are well-founded, but I'd rather look at it from a purely legal standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Does this, Armando, does this present a problem, though, because these items have already been, are they being installed now? Is this going to hold up the work done in the garage if we approve the other 3 items and not the security cameras? Where does that put us timeline?
Well, the work is underway in all instances, so it was really to clean up the funding side of this. If we, in terms of pausing the work, that's something that we would have to look into and bring it back as quickly as possible if we were.
Are they gonna be done with it in the next 2 weeks?
The goal was to have it done by July 1st, and honestly, they're not gonna start installing it until
Well, they
probably
can
the
do all
middle
the wire,
of
they can
June.
do everything else, they just can't stick that camera on there until we find out the legal portion. That's easy enough, that'll take an hour.
Am I correct, though? We've already approved this.
Well, the city council has approved
The
it.
city council has, but not the redevelopment agency.
The redevelopment agency needs to approve the funding, is what this request is for.
Okay, got you.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Make a motion for the rest of the funding minus the installation of the camera itself.
Can I get clarity? So you're basically asking about the legal liability of
Correct.
installing the cameras? Okay.
Second.
So my concern, if you put a camera there, that's implied security. Now, obviously, I got my law degree from a Cracker Jack box, so.
We'll have an answer for you quickly.
Better than most attorneys, man.
Okay, so the motion as it stands on the floor is to approve, Mr. Lawson, to approve the other items and to hold the actual installation of the cameras until the legal department comes back to us with an answer to your question.
All the other work can be done, yeah.
Okay.
So
Mr.
we're not
Abbott?
holding anybody up.
Mr. Abbott, did you have any other
I think
comments?
it's more of a comment, because at the old garage, we had cameras that weren't hooked up at all. I don't know if we ever got sued or anything, I'm just.
You know, that might not be a good thing to say in public.
Yeah, well, the garage isn't ours anymore.
Sounds like an interesting issue. I'll take a look at it.
I know that I've read something about it in the past, Chet, and that's, I just want to be sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with signage. These premises are being recorded 24 hours a day as compared to if they're not, those kinds of detrimental reliance on something like that. So
Thank you.
something like security cameras in operation, that might be all you need. I don't know, but I'd like to look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion. Is everyone clear? Any other questions? I have a motion. Do I have a second on Mr. Lawson's?
Seconded.
Agency Member Martini, seconded. Please vote.
You gotta wet your thumb.
Okay. We got it. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Item 6.3, consideration and possible approval of the 2018 CDBG street improvements, 8th Street and 16th Street project federally funded bid number 17-18-016, PWPWA 2018-129, contract AC SRA 317 to Granite Construction Company in the amount of $639,639.
See, we've been over this through the council. I move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
Do I have any discussion, further discussion? I have a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Public hearing. 6.5 is required by NRS 354596 to allow public comment on the tentative budgets for the redevelopment agencies of the City of Sparks Areas 1 and 2. Yes.
You skipped 6.4.
6.4.
I'm sorry. I'm reading ahead of myself. 6.4, consideration and possible adoption of resolution number SRA 132 to augment the fiscal 18 budget in the redevelopment area 1 capital fund projects by $75,000 to provide appropriations to supplement the community development block grant fund for the 8th Street and 16th Street pedestrian improvement projects.
Since we've had this from the council, I move to approve, Madam Chair.
Did we present this already for this specific project?
We didn't. This is just covering, that was an unplanned expenditure of the redevelopment funds. This is the augmentation to cover that.
Did you not
So
discuss
this-
that in the council meeting?
So this,
No?
this is
Okay.
for a new, this is for a new project.
Withdraw my motion.
CDBG also, but
CDBG had budget authority, sorry, Stacy Hammerling, Budget Administrator. CDBG had the budget authority for that. This was, when the decision was made to have the redevelopment fund contribute part of this project, that was an unplanned project. And we didn't have quite enough budget authority to cover the total share that they were proposing for redevelopment. So we need about $75,000 augmentation. The resources are there for that augmentation. This is just to cover that.
okay, so it's the same project you showed us today on 8th Street, and this is just to augment the budget that we're getting the federal funding. This is coming out of redevelopment funds, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have comments,
Move to
questions?
approve, Madam Chair.
I have a motion to approve by Agency Member Martini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. By Agency Member Abbott. Any questions, discussion? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now I'm on 6.5. 6.5, public hearing is required by NRS 354596 to allow public comment on the tentative budgets for the redevelopment agencies of the City of Sparks, Areas 1 and 2 for fiscal year 2018-19. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve Driscoll, City Manager, in this case, Chief Administrative Officer for the agency with the Finance Director for the agency. While this is similar to what we did in the City Council, this is separate action that has to be taken by this board. So there will be two items. This one being the first is a public hearing on the tentative. Mr. Kronk.
Yeah, just like we did for the city, we have to hold a tentative, public hearing on the tentative budget. There are two documents, but since this is one agency, we need to just hold one public hearing. Both these documents were filed with the Department of Taxation before April 15th as required by law. You just need a public hearing at this point, no other action.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. Do I have any public comment on the budget, tentative budget for the redevelopment agency? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Okay, I hear a motion from Agency Member Martini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by
There's really
Agent.
no action.
Oh, there's no action.
No action
That was
needed
just
on the
public
public
hearing.
hearing.
I'm sorry, we're going to 6.6 is our next action. Okay, so our action item would be 6.6, consideration and possible adoption of the final budgets for the redevelopment agency of the City of Sparks, Areas 1 and 2 for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cronk?
Thank you. Jeff Cronk, Chief Financial Officer for the record. Again, same as the city, this is now the final budget that we're presenting to you for the fiscal year 19 for both, for the redevelopment agency areas 1 and 2. Again, no substantial, significant changes to this document other than what we presented to you with the city manager's recommendation back in April. One small monetary item in Area 2 that related to interest revenues that we had to clean up. But again, no material changes to these documents. So with that, we're ready to file with the State Department of Taxation upon your approval.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Okay. I have a motion to approve. Do I have any questions or discussion? Looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Agency Member Abbott. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 7.1, thank you, gentlemen. 7.1, comments from the public. Do I have any comments from the public? Seeing none. Item 7.2, comments from the agency and Chief Administrative Officer.
You got a comment from your attorney?
Mr. Adams. Mr. Adams.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. Hearkening back to the city council meeting, agenda item 11.1, that was listed under planning and zoning public hearings and action items, that was properly and legally noticed. It does not require a public hearing, so the council did an excellent job on sticking to the law, and there's no need to worry about any litigious individual out there who's watching this on TV.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams. Any other comments from Agency Chair, Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Lawson?
I want to thank the RSCVA for the new signs we got out at the Sparks Marina and out at Golden Eagle Recreation Park. They donated $90,000 to us for that. And I think they turned out pretty good. So, good job to you, Brian.
How about turn your cell phones off?
Just now turned it on. I thought the meeting was over.
Okay.
Just now.
Seeing no other business, this meeting is adjourned.